So we're going to do 7.7, ready, set, go, number 14. And in the past, we did this one. We didn't do this one, but we talked about this one. And I said, I think the initial two numbers that you guys added, again, if you look at up here, these numbers here are the same numbers that you will use down here. And so they're trying to get you to break the problem up into two parts. Number one, building up figuring out the two numbers that you will use, and then down here is actually just you using the formula or the identity. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about how I find what two numbers from my these pieces here. I call them my Lego pieces. These are my Lego pieces here, that I'm gonna build to use to get to 255. Okay, so the first thing that I do is I bring out my calculator and I look at 255 and I'm trying to find two numbers. So the first number I do is I subtract 180, and this is the one that we did the last time. And you guys are like, oh, 75. And we know 75 because look, we found sine 75 before. And I said, yes, but usually when you're doing these, it's only from your Lego pieces 30, 60, 90, 45, 180, 270, 360, or multiples of those. Okay, you can use multiples of those. So I didn't really like this 75 plus 180, and hopefully that makes sense to you why it's not my favorite. Can I use it? Absolutely. But it's not my favorite. I'm going to kind of cross them out because of that 75 is technically not one of my building blocks that I like using. So another way that I do this is I take 255 and I start like subtracting off some of these guys. So for some reason, 30 and 60 are kind of like my favorite. So I'm going to start by subtracting 30 or 60 or 45 from there. So earlier when I was doing this with one of your classmates, I subtracted off 60. And I was like, 195, well, that doesn't help me. So I subtracted 60 again. And I'm like, ooh, 135 does help me. Because 135, I don't know if you guys know this, is 45 times 3. Okay. So it'd be helpful if you kind of knew a couple of the, like your stable. So if you're going back and looking at your unit circle, you're looking at those angles there. So the two numbers that I'm going to break this up into is, is 120, sorry, plus 135. Okay. Now let's say I didn't use subtract 60. That's not the only answer. So let's say I subtracted 30, because you guys all know that 30 is my favorite angle. And you're like, ooh, 225, Miss Johnson. I know what 225 is. And if you don't know what 225 is, it's 45. Oops, sorry. It's 45 times 5. Sorry, I should have taken this out. So another option for me to do would be to add 30 plus 225. And again, that's not the only cases. So when you're looking at these, don't think you have to do the same exact two numbers that I do. In fact, I'll challenge you, if you are trying to practice this, whichever one I use the other one to try to make sure that you're comfortable with that. Because on your final, you will have one of these. Okay. So I think because we used this one earlier, I will show you using this one just because I want a difference. Okay. So I'm going to use 30 plus 225, and I'm looking for the sign. So I'm going to do that over here so I have a little bit more room because Miss Johnson, she writes big. So this is number 14, sine of 255. And I'm going to rewrite this to the sine of, I think I said 30 plus 225. And I'm just going to add those in my head to make sure I didn't do it wrong. And that makes sense to me. Okay. So we've been talking about the alpha plus beta formula for a while now. Some of you have it kind of memorized. We know that that's sine, cosine, cosine, sine. And since it's sine, I follow that sign. Plus, plus. Plus on the inside, plus on the inside. As opposed to cosine, it's backwards. Okay, so then I'm just going to plop my numbers in. I plop 30 in there, and then I plop 45 in there. Why did I say 45? 225. 225. You should know why I said 45, because my brain is going faster. And I didn't even write 30. There you go. All right. So then I draw my angles, and then I'm going to pretty much be done. Okay, so here's my 225. Looks like this. Boom, boom. I label it -1, root 2. You guys should know that this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. If not, now you know. If you don't know, how did I know? 225 past 180 is 45 degrees. So that's a 45-degree angle. 30 looks like this. So this is 1, 2, root 3. Let me check my signs. No negatives. So now I'm just going to fill in those numbers right there. And I wish I would have left a little bit of room. I'm going to move this. Give me a second. So I'm going to move this just so I can write right under it. And then you guys can kind of see what I'm doing. No. That's okay. I'll move that later. No, too far. Too far. Jeez. Okay, there. That's pretty good. And then I'll just erase this. And then I'll just draw a new one. Pretty good. All right, here we go. So then I'm going to write the sine of 30 is 1/2. The cosine of 30 is root 3 over 2. If you don't know why I just wrote that, go back and look at like sine, cosine, tangent, like all of those videos so that it makes sense to you. Because otherwise, yeah. All right, cosine of 225, that's -1 over root 2. -1 over root 2. And I'm going to put this in parentheses to remind you that I'm multiplying. And this is also -1 over root 2. And then I'm going to multiply out. So I get -1 plus, actually it's minus root 3 all over 2 root 2. It was really convenient. Actually, it shouldn't surprise you that we had a common denominator there. It makes sense that it will always be a common denominator because you're always going hypotenuse over hypotenuse, or hypotenuse times hypotenuse over, not over, but plus hypotenuse times the same hypotenuses, right? So if you look, we actually did get the same answer. Oh, it's not over there because we didn't do it. So you do get the same exact answer. Okay. Hey, Miss Johnson, if I was to use that sign, the 75 plus 180, would I still have gotten the right answer? Yes. So my preference is that I don't use the 75 because the 75 was built off of 30 and 45. So I'd rather just build it off of, these Lego pieces here or multiples of them. So this is the same exact answer that we got earlier today by using 120 plus 135. You should have full confidence in this. The way you check your answer as well is you can actually plug this into your calculator. So sine, 255? And I need to make sure I'm in degree mode. So this answer is -0.965. And you're like, Ms. Johnson, that doesn't look like your answer. So then you just plug in your answer just to make sure. So we get -1, -1 minus root 3, all divided by 2 root 2. Oh my gosh, it's the same exact answer. Yay, we did it right, right? So just make sure that that's there, that you're comfortable with that. So last little talking point here that I will say, just so that we're on the same page is, so I'm okay with this answer having a square root of 2 in the denominator. For those of you going off to like the higher maths, your teacher might not be okay with that. And I taught you before how to rationalize your denominator. You're basically going to multiply it by like a number that gets rid of that radical, right? And so some of you are like, oh, it's root 2. You're right. But it has to be root 2 over root 2 so that you're not changing the value of it, right? Back in 3rd grade, your teacher might have said, hey, what number can I multiply any number by and it still is the same exact value? So like 4 times what gives me 4? And you'd be like, oh, it's 1. So we can't multiply it by root 2, but we can multiply by root 2 over root 2, which value-wise, that's 1. All right. So that is 7.7, number 14, using the sum identities. Okay. Again, the hardest part is going to be this part over here, right? How do I break it up? And once you kind of gain a method, kind of like what I was showing you, just start subtracting off your Lego pieces, you'll see numbers that are familiar to you. Once you have the two angles, like in our case, 30 plus 225, then you use the formula sine, cosine, cosine, sine. Of course, you would have to draw the two angles, label the triangles so that you can pull off sine and cosine of those two angles, right? All right. Thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. Bye.